On today's show, LeBron James officially a free agent, and we've got a lot to talk about. Is he coming back to the Cavs? Is he going to Golden State? We don't know, but there's plenty to discuss. We'll do that on this edition of Locked on Cavs.
You are Locked on Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi again, everybody. My name is Danny Cunningham, and I cover the Cleveland Cavaliers over at my Substack, The Inside Shot. And you're listening to the latest edition of Locked on Cavs, where NBA free agency has officially arrived. And that means LeBron James is a free agent, as I'm sure you've heard. And news broke earlier on Tuesday that LeBron told the Los Angeles Lakers that he was moving on, that he was breaking up with them. It was the it's not me, it's you type of thing, I guess is the best way that you could put it, meaning that LeBron James is a free agent. And shortly after that, we got the first inkling that the Cavs would be interested here, because earlier it was all speculation, right? And we talked about this. If you listened to yesterday's edition of Locked on Cavs, it hadn't necessarily been reported that the Cavs would be interested in LeBron, right? It was just all like, they better be interested in LeBron. I would expect them to be interested in LeBron, but it was never just, yes, the Cavs are interested in LeBron James. And then shortly after LeBron had told the Lakers, or that it was reported that LeBron had told the Lakers that he was moving on and that he was going to play basketball this season in the 2026-2027 NBA season, but it would not be for them. Chris Haynes was the first to say that the Cavs would have interest as a potential suitor for LeBron James. ESPN's Shams Charania followed that up a little bit later. He said the same thing. So we can, at this point, now firmly say that the Cavs have at least thrown their hat in the ring for LeBron James, which is something, again, that we all expected to happen. But the fact that it is now out there, I think just changed things a little bit. And I think that this is something that, as we go along, is one, I'd be surprised if it happens quickly. I will say, when I woke up on Tuesday morning, I woke up and I just had this feeling LeBron was going to be on the Warriors. And with everything that we had seen, with everything that we had heard, like, it didn't necessarily feel as if, oh man, this is going to be something that drags out. It almost felt like at 6:01 on Tuesday evening, when free agency is officially opened, that we were going to get the news shortly after. It's just like, hey, LeBron's going to go join the Golden State Warriors. Like, that's going to be the final chapter in his illustrious career. Obviously, that has not happened, and there has been some reporting that has come out over the last couple of hours that LeBron is going to take his time to some extent. I don't expect this to be a thing that necessarily drags out for weeks per se, but that LeBron is going to take his time, and he's going to evaluate a lot of different options, and that Rich Paul, the CEO of Clutch Sports and LeBron's longtime agent, is going to basically be canvassing the league to see who's interested in LeBron, where is the best fit for LeBron. And I think the longer this plays out, the better news that is for the Cavaliers, because part of the reason why I woke up on Tuesday morning thinking LeBron's future would be in Golden State and not Cleveland or not Miami or not anywhere else or not Los Angeles to that point too, which I guess I was right about that. So congratulations to me on what was a very easy call. And I think everybody saw coming, but I thought the Warriors had this plan, and that was the team that we had heard the most about going into free agency. And when you hear a lot about a team and a player being connected before they're really technically allowed to be connected, those things don't often happen by accident. Like, it's not random that it's, oh, LeBron could fit here, right? We've heard whispers about this for weeks. And it's not just some things like, oh man, when free agency opens up and they're finally allowed to talk, like, this could happen. That's never how it actually goes. Like, these things are worked out behind the scenes. A lot of free agency has been worked out. It's how it goes. And we have seen so many guys sign extensions too, to where NBA free agency has been a little quieter than expected. Like, as of 8/18, as I talk to you, if you're watching this live on YouTube or if you're listening to this via podcast platform of your choosing later on, like, there's not been some big bombshell in the free agent markets. The biggest news of the day has been LeBron saying that he's not going to play for the Lakers and that they should not wait up, like, don't leave the light on for me type of thing. And of course, the Toronto Raptors trading for Kawhi Leonard, which we will probably get to coming up a little bit later on in the show. So I look at this and think LeBron was going to be a Warrior, because I saw it as the Warriors have this grand plan where they want LeBron. They've made it known they want LeBron. Obviously, they have Steph Curry. Draymond Green opted out of his contract, and they're going to try and trade for Anthony Davis. They're going to trade Jimmy Butler and some draft compensation because Jimmy Butler is an aging player coming off of an ACL injury. And like, if Jimmy Butler is ever a good winning player again, I would be surprised. And I think a lot of people would be surprised by that. They're going to trade that for Anthony Davis. And that's going to be the thing that entices LeBron to Golden State. In addition to playing with Steph, who I do think, 8 years ago, that was a frosty relationship. Now it very much is not. Like, they seem to be friends at this point. So I do think that plays into it. But if you add Anthony Davis into that equation, I think you can look at it and say, I just don't know if it's in the cards for the Cavs. But now it's been reported, I believe Mark Spears of ESPN was the first one to report that the Wizards, are not interested in trading Anthony Davis. I think that's great news for the Cavs, because I look at the Golden State situation as one that is less enticing to LeBron than it was maybe 24, 48 hours ago. And that doesn't mean that LeBron still can't pick Golden State or that he won't pick Golden State. I don't know what he's going to do, but I do think that there have been things that have happened over the past 24 hours that have been in Cleveland's favor. I think the Wizards choosing to hang on to Anthony Davis is something that is beneficial to the Cavs. Like, the fact that Anthony Davis is going to remain in Washington, at least that's what the reporting says, that's really good news for Cleveland. And a lot of the messaging that we have gotten about LeBron and his wishes for this offseason over the past couple of hours, they've been consistent. This is not, and you've heard this from multiple media outlets. This is not one person saying this. This is multiple people have reported this, but this is not necessarily about money. LeBron is not going to sign a max contract wherever he is. Now, there might be some mechanisms to where maybe the Cavs can find a way to get him a few extra $1 million. Like, can they have a sign-in trade, right? Or it's the mid-level exception, which has been the contract that the Golden State Warriors have been rumored to be willing to offer LeBron, and the Cavs can open that up depending on how they go about their next couple of moves this offseason. But it's not necessarily going to be about that. It's going to be about happiness. Where is happiness for LeBron? I don't know the answer to that question. It's going to be about wanting to play basketball with something on the line, wanting to play basketball at a high level. Well, and when I think you look at this, when you look at the totality of the messaging about what LeBron James reportedly wants in his next chapter, his likely final chapter as an NBA player, if he wants to be competitive, if he wants to play for something every night, if he wants to be in a situation where he can legitimately make a run at the finals again, at maybe a 5th NBA championship, Golden State doesn't fit that description. And that, I think, is a really good thing if you look at this from a Cavs perspective, because I do think Golden State is easily the biggest threat to Cleveland to get LeBron for this upcoming season. Miami, maybe, like, I could listen. I don't think Miami is going to find the money to be able to do that. And I'm not sure how interested exactly Miami is. Minnesota is going to be interested. I think from a basketball sense, they make a lot of sense. I don't necessarily see LeBron going to Minneapolis, and I love Minneapolis. It's a great city. I'm not so sure LeBron's going to want to go there to spend the maybe last year or two of his career. I think San Antonio makes a lot of sense from a basketball perspective. I don't think they're necessarily interested. I've not heard anything about them being interested. So I look at this and say, if LeBron wants to win, of the teams that are reportedly interested in him, there's only one that fits that description. There's only one team out there right now that is interested in LeBron, that can realistically look at LeBron, and LeBron can have interest in them too, because this is true of Minnesota as well. But I would be surprised if LeBron has interest in Minnesota. Like, that would just be a surprising thing to me. But if you look at this from a perspective of, you can sell LeBron that he's the missing piece, you can't do that in Golden State. If the Warriors end up with LeBron, and they might, that Warriors team is not going to be great. That Warriors team is not going to be one of the 4 or 5. Like, that's probably a play-in team in the Western Conference, and they're definitely not getting out of the first round. They'll probably win 46, 47, maybe 48 games. They'll finish in 7th or 8th, and they will lose to the Spurs or the Thunder, depending on how the play-in shakes out. That's what that situation screams to me. To where Cleveland, is this team flawed? Absolutely it is. Is this team one that needs to get better anyways? Absolutely it does. But this was also a team that was just in the conference finals. This is a team that I think right now is much better than who the Golden State Warriors are right now. Now, if the Warriors add LeBron, they will, of course, get better than what they were last year, but they're not going to be some great team. They're going to be a team that's like, you know what? It's a Wednesday night. It's 10 o'clock. I don't have to wake up early in the morning. I'm going to turn them on. I'm going to have a lot of fun watching them play basketball, but they're not a serious threat. Where if you add LeBron, even at this age, to the Cavs right now, they are a serious threat. And I really only think of the realistic places that LeBron could go, because again, I do not think that LeBron playing in Minnesota is going to be something that's in the cards. But of the realistic places that LeBron could go, I think Cleveland's the one that you look at and say, yeah, this is the place where he can be somebody that's the difference maker, that you can sell, that he can push the Cavs over the top, that you can look at this and say, if LeBron wants to compete, like if he truly is looking for one last crack at winning a title, the Cavs are the realistic answer here. And is that how this is going to work? I'm not entirely sure. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know how things are going to go. We will have to wait and see what this looks like. We're on LeBron's timeline, and I don't know exactly what that timeline is. I don't think anyone knows exactly what that timeline is. We're going to have to be patient. We're going to have to wait, but I think it's going to be an exciting couple of days. And I think that I feel, at least me personally, and maybe you feel differently, but I feel better about where the Cavs are right now than I did 24 hours ago. We'll see if that changes. We'll see if that holds. But for the Cavs to get LeBron, they probably need to do a couple of things in order to make that happen. We'll talk about what those are and what that could look like next right here on Locked On Cavs. But first, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. The biggest stage in world soccer is here, and every match feels like it's got the potential for a memorable moment. One goal can completely change the energy of a game. It can shift momentum and can alter the outcome in an instant. That's what makes tournament soccer so exciting, from the opening whistle to the final kick. And right now, FanDuel is giving fans another reason to stay locked in with every goal pays. You bet on a match and get bonus bets for every goal that's scored in that match. More goals, well, that means more bonus bets. All you have to do is turn on your token. Obviously, the round of 32 ongoing right now. There might be a game happening as I'm recording this or live on YouTube again. But Team USA, they're back in action on Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time, taking on Bosnia in the round of 32. And Team USA, I think, is going to score some goals. One of the things that I like, and again, I'm not going to pretend to be a soccer aficionado here. I'm not going to sit here and act like I know everything about all this stuff. I don't. But I think that we're going to see some goals. I like the over 3.5 goals in this game. It's plus 198 to hit. If that hits, obviously, that's a nice payday for you. Plus, if you've got your token on for every goal pays, well, then you're going to be really happy when 4 goals comes through. So head on over to FanDuel right now, where you can benefit from each goal scored in the biggest soccer tournament in the world. From the opening whistle to the final kick, let there be goals on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. That's FanDuel, FanDuel.com to get started today. Thank you for making this edition of Locked On Cavs your first watch on YouTube of the day, or maybe your second, third, fourth, fifth watch if you're watching it live at 8:30 right now on Tuesday night, or your first listen of the day wherever you might get your podcast. And if you are watching live on YouTube, what we are going to do is we are going to have a little bit of a Q&A afterwards. So I will finish up the show. I'll do my normal 3 segments, and then I will, wrap the show up, but I will stay live. And if you've got questions afterwards, you can comment them in the live chat, and I will get to as many as I can before 9 o'clock tonight. So I will stay on a little bit longer. If you're a podcast listener, this does not apply to you. But if you're a YouTube listener, this is going to apply to you. So get comments in the chat, questions in the chat if you want to dive into it. But the Cavs do need to make some things happen if they do want LeBron back. And you may have noticed some reporting over the past couple of days and what exactly that looks like, because the Cavs have been active in trade talks. They've not signed anybody other than Thomas Bryant so far, which, again, I talked about on yesterday's show. I think is a fine signing. I think he's a positive addition, but I think his role needs to be the correct role, right? Like, I don't think you want to overplay Thomas Bryant, but I think that was a good move for the Cavs. But they've not been like, they've been in contact with Dean Wade, and we'll see what happens there. I still have my doubts as to whether or not Wade is going to return. And that might be something that does hinge on LeBron James, whether or not he comes back to Cleveland. But the Cavs do potentially need to clear up some money here. And one of the things that has been talked about more so over the last 24 hours, and this has been something that if you watch this show every day or you listen to this show every day, this is something that I've been hinting at. when I've done my fake trades, right? Who did I have involved in most of them? Dennis Schroeder and Max Strus. I think those two guys are the two guys that the Cavs are potentially looking at moving. There's been reporting from a number of different outlets about this. And like, I've not been doing this coincidentally. Like, those are the guys that have been, I don't want to say on the trade block, but they've been the guys that I think have been most discussed for the Cavs to trade away so far this offseason. Because if they trade those guys away, and it depends exactly what those trades would look like, I don't necessarily know the frameworks of any potential deals that the Cavs have lined up. I went through a couple of my own frameworks the other day that I think make a lot of sense for the Cavs and could make this team better, but those were not necessarily dependent on LeBron James. But if they do that, that's how they could open up the mid-level exception for LeBron. So the numbers came out earlier on Tuesday, like right around the time the new league year started. The numbers came out and the mid-level exception is just over $15 million. Like it's 15 million and it's not even 15.1 million. It's like $15,060,000 for this upcoming season. And that is what Golden State has been rumored to have on the table for LeBron. And that's why when they saw Draymond opt out to maybe take less over more years, the same way James Harden has, by the way, which we'll get to the Harden stuff in just a second. But that was a way for the Warriors to open up that mid-level exception. And it did get a little more complicated with Kristaps Porzingis signing an extension of his contract. And I don't exactly know the figure of that deal, but I do think I know it's 2 years for 40 million, like $20 million a year on an average basis. I don't know if it's flat. I don't know if it increases, because that could marginally impact things. But the Cavs have an avenue to open that up, and it's trading Max Strus and it's trading Dennis Schroeder. And I do still think that one way of obtaining LeBron, and I went through this the other day on my fake trade show, one way of obtaining LeBron could be through a sign and trade. And I think Max Strus could make a lot of sense in that area. And the one thing that did happen too, and maybe I should have brought this up in the first segment as it pertains to like things that have gone the Cavs' way so far in this saga, this chase, whatever we want to call this race for LeBron again. LeBron telling the Lakers that he's not going back there, it does open like, and this was maybe why I kind of always thought the Jared Allen for LeBron stuff was silly, but now the Lakers don't have any leverage. Like if they want to cooperate on a sign and trade, or maybe they don't have anything to lose by cooperating on a sign and trade. They can get somebody back for LeBron that can benefit them. And I think Max Strus falls into that bucket, but they don't necessarily have the Jared Allen for LeBron stuff is done. Like that is not a thing that's going to happen. And I always thought it was a silly thing. I always thought that would have been an overpay. I would not have wanted to trade Jared Allen for LeBron. I think, maybe you can explore trading Jared Allen for some other things at some point, but trading him for LeBron, I did not think makes sense. And now with LeBron telling the Lakers that he's not coming back, like I think that is firmly off the table. But I look at Max and I look at Dennis as the two guys that I think are most likely to be moved over the next 24 to 48 hours. And if those things happen, if those dominoes start to fall, I think that increases the likelihood that LeBron returns to the Cavs. Because if the Cavs do that, if they find a way to get somebody to take Dennis Schroeder's contract, and I don't know if they will. There are a couple of teams with cap space. Brooklyn is one of them. Chicago is another one of them. I believe there was a reporter in Chicago that said the Bulls might have interest in Max Strus, who is a Chicago guy. Maybe that's a fit. I'm not entirely sure. But I don't think the Cavs would have an issue finding somebody to take Max. He's a good player. The injuries have obviously been a bit of an issue for him over the past couple of years, but I don't think that unloading his contract, and he's making $16 million this upcoming season, I don't think that would be an issue for the Cavs. Maybe unloading Dennis Schroeder's contract where he's making $14 million, that could be a bit of an issue. Like he is somebody that I think has a contract that teams across the NBA don't look at as a positive asset. In fact, I know they don't look at it as a positive asset, and the Cavs might need to attach a draft pick in order to get off of that contract, if that makes sense, just because of the way that it's viewed across the league. But if the Cavs do those two things, like if they're able to get off of that money and those two make a combined $30 million, I'm not saying that they trade both of those guys into cap space per se and don't get anything back, but that is a way for them to open up that mid-level exception for LeBron. And I think that opens up the dream scenario for the Cavs, because the dream situation for the Cavs should, like, it involves LeBron, but I don't think that this is a team that you look at and just say, yeah, if they just sign LeBron, then they're good. Like, run everything back and go, you're great. Like, no, I still think they need to make some tweaks around the edges, but that's the big fish that you need. That's the thing that I think gives, if you're the Cavs, I think that gives you the biggest leg up. So that makes sense. You can add LeBron. You could also re-sign Dean Wade with that extra money. You could also not have to trade Jared Allen. I mean, maybe you want to look into that to see what upgrade you could get in other areas. But I don't think this is something that if you add LeBron, you're done. But I also think it opens up the dream situation for the Cavs. And as far as timing goes, again, I don't think this is going to be a quick thing from LeBron. And as I say this, maybe he decides tomorrow. I don't know. I would be a little surprised by that. But I do wonder if this is something that holds up a lot of business across the rest of the league, because we've not seen a ton of free agency as far as guys switching teams via free agency. I don't know that we've seen anybody other than Tim Hardaway Jr. sign with a new team so far. And it's 8:35 on Tuesday night as I say that. But we've not seen a lot of player movement. I do wonder how much of the league is waiting on LeBron. And I wonder if there are some trade paths the Cavs would want to go down, knowing that they would be getting LeBron in that situation, versus maybe if they're not going to get LeBron, they want to use their trade assets in other ways. So I do wonder if this is going to be something that holds up the Cavs from doing business. Does Dean Wade wait for a LeBron James decision before figuring out if he's going to come back to Cleveland? I do not think it's coincidental that we don't know how much money James Harden's going to be making this upcoming season. I think that is something that is dependent on LeBron James. Like, I would expect if the Cavs get LeBron back, James is going to be making a little bit less money than maybe anticipated. If the Cavs don't get LeBron, James is going to be making maybe a little bit more money than LeBron James anticipated. I think those things are connected. So I look at this and think the Cavs are probably going to have to wait a little bit, but their dream situation, their dream scenario for this summer is something that's in play. Now, I do want to talk through a little bit about the other options for LeBron, because again, it's not only Cleveland where he could be. Of course, if you're watching or listening to the show, you probably would like it to be Cleveland. And of course, that's the case. But I also think that we need to talk about where else he could go. And I also do want to talk about the Kawhi Leonard trade that happened on Tuesday, because I think that's something that should put some pressure on the Cavs. We'll talk about why that is next, right here on Locked On Cavs. Thank you again for making this edition of Locked On Cavs your first watch on YouTube or your first listen each and every day, no matter where you get your podcast. And if you have a question for the show, I will be getting to some Q&A after this show. So I'm going to finish this segment. We're going to talk about where else LeBron could go. If you're watching live on YouTube, we're going to talk about that. We'll talk about the Kawhi trade and some other things here that could make some sense. And then I'm going to close out the show. And then if you have questions, ask them in the chat and I will get to them and we'll hang out for a little bit. We'll talk about all those all the things that is on your mind right here on this live edition of Locked On Cavs. Again, if you're listening via podcast, that doesn't pertain to you, but you can always tweet at me at RealDCunningham, or you can email the show locavsmailbag@gmail.com. So the Cavs are not the only potential suitor for LeBron. Golden State is obviously one that is still on the table, and I would probably at this point in time call them the front runner. Like, I don't think it is some situation where I would be stunned if he doesn't end up there. I would not be. Like, I would not be surprised if LeBron's on the Cavs. I think it's a firm possibility. But I still look at it and say maybe it's a little bit better than a coin flip that he ends up on Golden State. I think Miami could make some sense. I don't know where they're going to get that money. And they signed Tim Hardaway Jr. to the taxpayer mid-level exception, or I guess agreed to a contract with Tim Hardaway Jr. for a taxpayer mid-level exception, which is just over $6 million this upcoming season. So I believe they only have like $5 or $6 million more to spend on the rest of their roster. I just don't know where LeBron fits in there. And from a basketball perspective, again, like I said in the first segment, if he wants to just be in California and he wants to play with Steph and have fun, I wouldn't, seeing LeBron in a Warriors uniform, I think would feel pretty gross to a lot of people. I have maintained this for a while when it became evident at certain points during this season that LeBron was not going to finish his career in LA. That I didn't want him to be a random jersey guy where he's played for so many years and he's done so many great things, and he's worn a Cavs uniform, Miami Heat uniform, and Los Angeles Lakers uniform. I don't want to see him wearing just a random uniform of the Golden State Warriors, or I guess the Minnesota Timberwolves or San Antonio Spurs. Like, I don't want to see that stuff at the end of his career. And I really don't want to see it with the Warriors because of the history between LeBron and that team. Like, that to me just would be something that I don't want to call it a slap in the face. I don't want to say that it devalues anything that happened in the mid 2010s, but it would just be, I think the best way to put it would be a bummer. That's kind of how I feel about that. And we'll have to wait and see what happens, but that would not be something that I would love to see. And I don't think a lot of people watching or listening to this would love to see that either. But I look at it from a basketball perspective. And as I said in the first segment, I don't necessarily think that the Warriors make a lot of sense from a basketball standpoint. I don't think that team would be good enough. Like, I do not see them as a threat in the West. I see them as a play-in team. Maybe they can get to 5 or 6, but they're not better than OKC or San Antonio or Minnesota or Denver. That's already 4 right there. Are they better than Houston? Probably not. Are they better than the Lakers? I'm not so sure about that. Like, that's 6 right there. So I don't see that as the best basketball fit. I think the Cavs, given the fact that they just got to the Eastern Conference Finals, they can say, if LeBron was on the team this year, things probably look different. I'm not going to sit here and say the Cavs would have won the finals if they had LeBron, but they probably would have beaten they probably would have beaten the Raptors and the Pistons in fewer than 7 games with LeBron. And if they're not exhausted by the time they get to Madison Square Garden for the Eastern Conference Finals, maybe that series goes differently. I don't know. We'll never know. But I think the Cavs are a lot closer than them. And then Minnesota, again, I think makes a lot of sense from a basketball standpoint. I'm not sure that I can picture LeBron playing with LaMelo Ball necessarily. I don't know that I can envision that happening. And I also just do not think LeBron is going to go to Minnesota. And then San Antonio is the other one. If LeBron just wants to be a ring chaser, which I don't think anyone could blame him for at this point in his career. I do think, other than the Warrior stuff, like, it's hard for me to have a gripe if he would go anywhere else to finish out his career. I think it should be Cleveland. But other than the Warrior stuff, like, none of this is offensive, I guess. But San Antonio is probably the best chance. If LeBron just wants to go and contribute to a team that can win the title next year, San Antonio makes sense. Like, that is a situation where they could use a LeBron James, because every team could use a LeBron James. And the Spurs obviously just went to the finals. But I think from where LeBron would fit in, where he'd be beloved, all of those things, Cleveland makes the most sense. And you look at the Eastern Conference, the Toronto Raptors got better this week on Tuesday. They traded for Kawhi Leonard. The Raptors got better. I'm not going to say that I've got this definitive top 4 in the East right now, but the Raptors are one of the 4 best teams in the East at this moment. I have zero doubt about that. I think Detroit's gotten a little worse. I think Detroit probably will. Like, the Jalen Duren situation is weird. And we do have to, and this is true of the Cavs, it's true of every team. We have to wait and see exactly what things look like before we get to the point where it's like, okay, yeah, they're better, they're worse. Like, I'm confident Toronto is better because they added Kawhi Leonard. It feels like Detroit's getting worse because they might not have Jalen Duren. They're probably losing Tobias Harris. They're going to cut Duncan Robinson. And I realize, like, we're not talking about, other than Jalen Duren, who was an all-NBA player, we're not talking about cream of the crop guys, but, like, those guys made Detroit tick this past season and they won 60 games. Like, I could see Detroit taking a step back. Indiana's going to be much better. Boston might take a step back. New York's still going to be really good. Where do the Cavs fit in? I don't know, but, like, I don't think there's this huge gap between 1 and 5 or 6 right now in the East. And if you look at what Toronto did adding Kawhi, and I get that LeBron right now is not what LeBron was, but LeBron is still a guy that I look at and say, can he be the finishing piece for a team like the Cavs? I absolutely think that he can be. So from a basketball perspective, I look at this and say, I don't know if it's going to happen, but I look at it and I just think this is the best thing. This is the best situation for LeBron. If LeBron wants to be happy Is Cleveland going to provide that? I don't know. I don't know exactly what makes LeBron happy. But what I do know is if LeBron comes back to Cleveland, he's going to have a chance to compete. He's going to be on a team that is capable of winning the finals, and he's going to be beloved every step of the way. If he goes to Golden State, those things are not going to be true. If he goes to Minnesota, those things are maybe going to be true. I don't think the beloved thing would be true. And LeBron is somebody that loves a good story. And I cannot think of a better story than LeBron returning back to where it all started to finish off what I think has been the greatest career in NBA history. So that's going to do it for this live edition of Locked on Cavs. But again, like I said, if you're watching live on YouTube right now and you've got questions, if you want to chat for a little bit, hang out for a little bit, drop it in the live chat right now. We will talk through things in just a second after I finish wrapping up this podcast. But if you could please do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button on this video. The more thumbs up that I get, the more likes I get on this video, the more likely I am to go live again. This is the first time that I've ever gone live in the 2+ years I've been doing Locked on Cavs. It's been 25 months since I took over the show. This is the first time I've gone live. It's been fun. I want to do it more, but I need to see that you guys want me to do it more as well too. So hit that thumbs up button and make sure that you're subscribed as well, so you don't miss the latest Locked on Cavs content. And if you're listening to this podcast, wherever you get them, that could be Apple, that could be Spotify, that could be anywhere else, please hit the thumbs up button, or click subscribe, and make sure that you don't miss the next episode of Locked on Cavs. I will have you covered with everything that happens over the course of NBA free agency. It's going to be fast, it's going to be wild, and I'll have you covered right here on Locked on Cavs. All right. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. That was fun to do a live show for the very first time. And I will be taking some questions, probably going to go for about 15 extra minutes here. So if you're on YouTube, you're getting a bonus edition of Locked on Cavs for free. Just give me a second as I scroll through some of these comments, because can't necessarily keep an eye on them the way I might like to while I'm watching the show. But I do want to see what questions we have, what we want to talk about. Jeffrey Smith asks, will the new salary cap for 2026, 2027 have any impact on the Cavs? The Cavs are going to be a tax team this year. I would be surprised, very, very surprised, if they're a second apron team this year. I would not be stunned if they're a first apron team this year. It does kind of depend on some of the mechanisms that the Cavs use to build this roster. Like, there are some things that could hard cap them at certain spots. There are some things that they might not, like if you look at Miami, they're a good example. Because of the trade with Giannis, they're going to be hard capped at the first apron. So they had $19 million or whatever it is to spend on that roster after the trade for Giannis to fill out the rest of it. The Cavs could be in a situation like that. They're not going to be a spot where they need to add so many guys, because they essentially have 13 guys under contract, including James Harden, who is not under contract, and including Malik Thomas, who, by the way, will meet with the media on Wednesday for the first time. I don't know how much we're going to talk about that on tomorrow's show because of free agency, but we might have a note there. But I don't think that the salary cap for this upcoming season, like the Cavs were prepared for the salary cap to be what it is. So I don't look at this and say, oh man, that changes everything, or things feel differently right now. So I don't think that's going to be a thing. Would you make this trade? Donovan Mitchell and Dennis Schroeder to New Orleans, and Cleveland receives Zion and Trey Murphy. I would absolutely 100% not make that trade. You cannot count on Zion. I think Zion is an interesting buy low standpoint, from the sense that he's an all NBA player, but you cannot trade, like at his peak, he's an all NBA player. You cannot trade Donovan Mitchell, who's been a top 10 player for 3 of the past 4 years in the NBA, for Zion and Trey Murphy. Like, Trey Murphy's a really good complementary player, but he cannot be an offensive engine. Like, he's a good catch and shoot guy. He's not necessarily, he's a good defensive guy. He's not somebody that you can say, hey, go get me a bucket, go break down the defense, go get to the rim. Like, that's not who Trey Murphy is. I would absolutely not be making that trade. But that's just me. Maybe you feel differently. I don't necessarily think that's going to be a thing. David says he's coming home. He's in Akron right now. Him and Kobe and Dan and Rich. I don't know where Kobe, I have a guess that Kobe is probably at the Cavs facility in Independence. I don't know where Dan is. I don't know where Rich Paul is. LeBron has been in Akron. He's been golfing a lot. If you follow him on Instagram, like he played Firestone the other day. He's played at Portage Country Club a couple of times over the course of however long he's been back home. He's been posting a lot, like driving through my city. Some of it almost honestly feels a little bit like a tease. We'll have to wait and see what happens, but he's been enjoying his time in Northeast Ohio, I think would be the case. David also says, possible sign and trade Strus and Dean Wade. I went through this the other day. There is a way to make that work. And you could actually, if you're the Cavs, you could pay LeBron more than just the middle of the exception. If you do that, you could I think you could get up to like $24 million the way that I had it out. Now that might hard cap the Cavs in some areas. They might not want to go as high because it might hamper their ability to build out the rest of the roster if they did that. But I do think that is a potential avenue. But we will have to wait and see. The Wizards reported to not be trading Anthony Davis. That's a big thing for the Cavs. Like, I do think that if the Warriors were able to trade Jimmy Butler for Anthony Davis, that could have been a situation where it's like, okay, maybe like that might have pushed the thing over the edge to where LeBron is going to the Warriors. But the Wizards not wanting to do that trade, I think is going to be something that is a benefit to the Cavs. Joel asks, what role do you see Jalen Tyson playing next season? It's kind of dependent on what happens during this offseason. Like I am very high on Jalen Tyson. If the Cavs don't find a way to upgrade on the wing, like let's say that the Cavs just run things back, say they re-sign Dean Wade, say they don't get LeBron, say we're looking at this roster kind of what it was at the end of last season. Jalen needs to be the full-time starting small forward. I think that he is their ticket to elevating that starting lineup. And I think one of the disappointing things was that he didn't necessarily get, I don't know if opportunity is the right word, because he had some not so great moments. He had some good moments in the postseason too. But I think that Jalen Tyson needs to be the starter if they run this back as is. Now, if they add LeBron, obviously Jalen's not starting. If they were able to add somebody like Trey Murphy, Jalen is not starting. I don't think that's going to be the case, but I do think that Jalen needs to be a starter on this basketball team if they don't make a significant upgrade. But if they do make a significant upgrade, I think Jalen is firmly in the rotation. He's one of your 7 or 8 best players without a doubt. And I think that next year, like we should expect Jalen Tyson to take another step forward. He took a big step forward, I thought, this past season from what he was as a rookie. And I would expect that Jalen Tyson is going to take another step forward this upcoming season. So I think that his role is going to be significant. We'll wait and see exactly what it is, but I do think it's going to be something that, like, Jalen Tyson is going to be a very important player for the Cavs, whether that's coming off the bench, whether that is a starter. I don't know exactly, but I do think that he's going to be a very important player for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Hey, Danny, would you do Jared Allen and Strus for Jaylen Brown, throw in Dennis Schroeder, Jalen Tyson with a pick? I think I think that's a tough one to think about. I would not do Evan Mobley for Jaylen Brown. And I do get the sense that the price on Jaylen Brown is going to have to come down. What the Celtics are asking for is not what teams are willing to pay very clearly. That is a much more palatable package to me than Evan Mobley. I still don't love how Jaylen Brown would fit in with Donovan and James. Like that's just, I think that you get the sense things could be a little bit too ISO heavy offensively with that. So I don't know that I love that version of the Cavs, but that's a trade where I just think that you're getting good enough value to where you have to at least think about it. But I wouldn't trade Evan Mobley for Jaylen Brown. Like I would not do that. I think that if you're trading Evan Mobley, you need to, one, get a player that is just as good, if not better. And I think like it's fair to say Jalen and Evan are in the same conversation. If Jalen's not better than Evan, like he's not worse, right? But I think fit needs to matter too. And I just don't look at that as fit. Like if you were going to trade Evan, again, I think it needed to be for Giannis. And it wasn't for Giannis. So I think when you look at that, Evan's going to stay put in Cleveland. How can we root for LeBron if he goes to the team we beat in our championship and really stole at least one more from us? I think that's one of the things that LeBron probably has to wrestle with. Like, that was a legit rivalry. I can only think of one other rivalry in the NBA in the last decade or so that has been like that one, and it's been Minnesota and Denver. Like, those two teams do not like each other. And Draymond and Steph and LeBron, they're all friends now. There was like genuine disdain at some points during those finals. And I think that would just make it a situation where it's like, man, it would feel, again, I think the best way to put it is it would feel gross. It would be something where it would feel gross. That's kind of the best way that I could describe it. And then last question that I'll get to here as we wrap up the show. Where do you think Strus is headed? I don't know. I've checked in. I've heard maybe Milwaukee. I don't know that I would put a ton of stock into that. I've heard maybe Chicago. I think that could make some sense. I don't think the Cavs, again, if they choose to move on from Max Strus, I don't think the Cavs would be in a situation where they're struggling to find a suitor. I think if they move on from Max Strus, they'll be able to find a suitor. Like, Max is a good player that I think would have a lot of value across the NBA. Like, I think if they wanted to trade Max Strus, this is not a situation where they say, hey, we need to get off this contract. We'll give you a second round pick to take him. No, teams would want Max Strus because he's a winner. I think the Cavs are better for having him. Like, if the Cavs didn't need to trade Max Strus to get LeBron, I would say don't trade Max Strus. Like, he's somebody that I think is a beneficial player to this team. So I do, I don't know where he would go if he gets traded. But I do think that unless the Cavs get LeBron, like, they would miss Max Strus. And then last one, LeBron is staying home. Put that in the atmosphere. If the Cavs run things back, they won't win 45 games. That's an overreaction. Whether the Cavs add LeBron or don't, the Cavs are probably going to win 50 games next year. They're going to be really good. They're going to be an awesome offense. Now, are they a championship contender? I don't necessarily think so right now. I think that is where LeBron makes it. I don't think LeBron makes the difference in the regular season for the Cavs. I think the difference with LeBron comes in the postseason. I don't think we would see a much different Cavs team from October to April, but could we see a different version of the Cavs in May? That's what I think the bet on LeBron would be. But thanks everybody for hanging out. Appreciate it. Had a lot of fun. We'll try and maybe do these live shows once a week. If you guys, again, comment below if you like the live show. If you want more of them, please let me know. I will try and do them once a week if there's a desire for them. If not, I'll just go back to recording the shows, and I hope you guys enjoy it that way. So as we get out of here, if you could please one last time, going to ask you one last time, hit that thumbs up button for me on YouTube. Click subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and click that notification bell so you don't miss the latest from me at Locked On Cavs. If news breaks, I'll have you covered right here on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. So thanks for hanging out, and I will talk to you a little bit later right here on Locked On Cavs.